Imagine spending 27 years in a prison cell, cut off from the world, simply for believing in equality and justice. For most, such a sentence would break their spirit. But for Nelson Mandela, it only made him stronger. His story is one of resilience, sacrifice, and an unshakable commitment to freedom. Mandela's fight against apartheid, the oppressive system of racial segregation in South Africa, turned him into a global symbol of justice. But before he became the world's most celebrated freedom fighter, he was just a young man who dared to dream of a better future. In this first section, we will explore his early life, his journey into activism, and the events that led to his imprisonment. Early life and the seeds of rebellion. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 8 in the small village of Mevazo in South Africa. His father was a chief in the Vembu tribe, and from an early age, Mandela was introduced to the traditions of leadership and justice. However, the reality of racial discrimination soon became clear to him. Growing up, Mandela witnessed the injustices faced by black South Africans. The country was ruled by a white minority government that treated non-white citizens as second-class people. Opportunities for education, jobs, and political representation were severely restricted. Despite these barriers, Mandela was determined to get an education. He attended Fort Hare University, one of the few institutions that allowed black students, where he began developing his political ideas. However, he was expelled for participating in a student protest, his first act of defiance against the oppressive system. To escape an arranged marriage, Mandela fled to Johannesburg in 1941. He saw the harsh realities of apartheid firsthand. He worked as a law clerk while completing his legal studies. It was during this time that he joined the African National Congress, a political movement fighting for the rights of black South Africans. The birth of a freedom fighter, Mandela quickly rose through the ranks of the ANC. He believed in peaceful protests and negotiations. However, as apartheid laws grew stricter and the government became more brutal, he realized that passive resistance alone was not enough. In 1948, the National Party came to power and formally established apartheid, introducing laws that segregated black and white South Africans in every aspect of life. Mandela, along with his fellow activists, organized protests, boycotts, and strikes. By the 1950s, he became one of the key leaders of the Defiance Campaign, urging people to disobey unjust laws peacefully. However, the government responded with violence. Many activists were arrested, beaten, or even killed. In 1956, Mandela and 155 other leaders were arrested and charged with treason. The trial lasted 5 years, but in the end, they were all acquitted. Still, Mandela knew that the government would not stop trying to silence him. The turn to armed resistance after witnessing the massacre of 69 peaceful protesters in Sharperville in 1960, Mandela realized that nonviolent resistance was no longer enough. The government had banned the ANC, and the situation was growing worse by the day. Mandela and his comrades formed Umkhonto, the armed wing of the ANC. Unlike violent revolutionary groups, MK focused on sabotaging government infrastructure, power lines, railway stations, and military installations without harming civilians. Mandela traveled across Africa to seek military training and support. He also secretly visited the United Kingdom and other countries to gain international backing for the anti-apartheid movement. But the South African government was determined to stop him. The arrest and the Rivonia Trial. In 1962, Mandela was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison for illegally leaving the country. But while he was in prison, the police raided an ANC hideout in Rivonia and discovered documents linking him to MK's activities. Mandela and several other ANC leaders were put on trial for sabotage and conspiracy to overthrow the government. It was a trial that could have ended in the death penalty. Instead of pleading for mercy, Mandela used the trial as a platform to defend his beliefs. In his famous Rivonia Trial speech, he declared, "I have walked a long road to freedom. It has been a lonely road, and it is not finished yet. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The court sentenced him to life imprisonment. The beginning of 27 years in prison in 1964, Mandela was sent to Robben Island, a maximum security prison off the coast of Cape Town. His prison cell was a small, windowless room with only a mat on the floor to sleep on. He was forced to do hard labor in a lime quarry under the scorching sun. He was allowed only one visit and one letter every 6 months. But even behind bars, he refused to be broken. He educated himself and his fellow prisoners, turning Robben Island into an underground university. He studied law, history, and politics, and smuggled letters to the outside world, keeping the spirit of resistance alive. As years passed, Mandela's name became a symbol of justice worldwide. Protests erupted across Europe, the US, and Africa, demanding his release. The world had not forgotten him, but South Africa's government refused to give in. It seemed like Mandela would spend the rest of his life in prison. Despite the harsh conditions, Mandela remained unbreakable. He found strength in the friendships he built with fellow prisoners. He exercised daily, read books, and even started a secret garden. He believed that even in the darkest of places, hope could survive. And then came the winds of change. In the late 1980s, South Africa began to feel the intense pressure of international isolation. Protests in Europe and the United States grew louder. The world had united under one cry: free Nelson Mandela. Inside his cell, Mandela never stopped thinking, never stopped strategizing. Every day, he carried the burden of millions of people hoping and praying for change. Yet he stayed humble. He wrote letters, he reflected, he prepared. In 1985, the government offered to release Mandela under condition that he renounce violence, but Mandela refused. He said, only free men can negotiate. His integrity was unshakable. He would rather remain behind bars than betray the cause he had sacrificed his life for. Then, finally, the impossible happened. On February 11, 1990, after 27 long years, Mandela walked out of prison with his head held high. The world held its breath. As he emerged, fist raised, he wasn't just a man anymore. He was a symbol of endurance, of courage, of unyielding faith. But Mandela didn't stop there. He didn't come out of prison looking for revenge. He came out looking for reconciliation. He met with the very leaders who had once called him a terrorist. He shook hands with those who had ordered his imprisonment, not because he had forgotten but because he had forgiven. He knew that South Africa would never heal through hatred. It would only heal through unity. He worked day and night, navigating a country on the edge of civil war. And in 1994, South Africans of all races stood in line, some for the first time ever, to cast their vote. And when the dust settled, it was Nelson Mandela, prisoner turned president, who had won. His victory wasn't just political. It was deeply personal for every person who had ever felt oppressed, silenced, or underestimated. Mandela proved that no matter how long the night, the sun always rises. As president, he focused on rebuilding not just infrastructure, but hearts. He launched the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, giving both victims and perpetrators a chance to speak, to heal, and to move forward. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect. But it was human. Mandela once said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." And his life embodied those very words. He stepped down after one term, showing the world that leadership was about service, not power. Even after retiring, he continued fighting, this time against poverty, AIDS, and global inequality. Mandela's story is not just about prison walls or presidential speeches. It's about the strength of the human spirit. It is about believing in something so deeply that you are willing to give up your freedom for it. To everyone listening, what are you willing to fight for? Life will challenge you. People may doubt you. Doors may close. But remember Mandela. Remember how a man, locked away for nearly 3 decades, walked out stronger than ever and changed the world. So when life gets tough, when the world tells you no, stand tall, speak your truth, keep going. Because if Nelson Mandela could rise after 27 years in a cell, then so can you. Never give up. Never stop believing. Because even in the darkest times, hope always finds a way. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more powerful stories that will fuel your motivation. Keep pushing forward. Your journey is just beginning.